Everybody, my name is Mark Sage. I'm the Executive Director of the AREA Augmented Reality Enterprise Alliance. And it's an honor and a pleasure to be speaking with a friend and someone I look up to hugely in the industry, Christine Perey, independent analyst and consultant, as well as a million other things you do for the XR ecosystem. And Christine, quite rightly, you're one of the inaugural AWE Hall of Fame recipients. So firstly, congratulations. Thank you. Amazing. So please tell me a little bit about your background and what led you, do you think, becoming a inaugural AWE Hall of Famer?
Gosh, thanks, Mark. It was a surprise for me too. As a matter of fact, I guess I don't feel like I'm old, but being an OG is an honor, and I really appreciate the opportunity. Why do I think? Well, I'll set a little context. I'm not going to go to back into ancient history before I got into AR, but it was in 2006 that I was part of a think tank. It was organized on behalf of European research institutes who were going to respond to the European Commission's call for topics. And there were probably 40 of us, and we brainstormed for 2 days. And I had the, amazing experience of being on a team that invented to ourselves the possibility of augmented reality. We had some materials. You know how in think tanks you have all these little pieces of paper, different sticky colors, and in our case we had pipe cleaners. And I made a pair of glasses and tied on something with pipe cleaners, and had the use case was that you were traveling and you were passing people that you might know or you might be related to closely, but you didn't recognize them or you didn't have any context. So the use case was a social augmented reality setting. However, in my past lives and even in 2006, my focus is more on productivity. It's more on getting stuff done. I think that's one of the things that I personally try to achieve, but I also want to provide support to technology so the companies can be more efficient, can be more employees can be more productive and have less risk and so forth. So it was very quickly that this project and this idea became a passion for me. So I started to provide consulting services. But what was interesting in that time in 2006 is there were still some remnants of virtual reality. There were people still remembered a decade before, what had happened, and but there was no one really talking or using or really selling augmented reality materials. It was entirely a research domain, mostly in big universities, but also in military. So really at that time, it was still quite evident that the military had their hands all over augmented reality for aviation pilots, but also, of course, for other disciplines, I would say. And then there were people who had worked in these areas in augmented reality who could imagine enterprise use cases. And then not very long afterwards, there were a few companies. Mataio was one notable one that emerged and provided these platforms for companies to be able to create experiences on their own. And I think, I did not code, I didn't participate in any of those companies, but I was really I think of myself as part of the matrix, the glue, sort of, to understand what one company was doing differently from another company. And I enjoyed being at that nexus point. And it was one of the places that I go to every year, if I can, is the International Symposium on Mixed and Augmented Reality. So that's called ISMAR. And this is where the research community gets together. It's not commercial or so forth, although there are commercial researchers that are there. A lot of Nokia people, there were Microsoft people in those days, in the early days. And it was that, so I attended ISMAR from probably 2006 until this year. I'm going to be going to that event. And what happened to me a few years in is I was organizing the birds of a feather, and there was one of these BOF sessions was about enterprise and industrial use cases, and it was standing room only. There was a line out the door, and Mark, that was for me the pivotal moment when I decided that I was no longer interested in consumer use cases, and that this technology would really be for enterprises, for productivity, risk and risk management, and so forth. So it was in 2010 that this kind of surprise and very fundamental, I guess, for me, a moment. But that's only been 14 years. That's not really that long. It's not.
No.
Well, what followed in the years that came is I started talking with Paul Davies at Boeing and other people who were in big companies manufacturing very complex products. And then we decided to collaborate and create the AREA, the AR for Enterprise Alliance. But I think one of my passions since then is perhaps one of the reasons that I'm part of this inaugural group is I had learned before in other technologies that I'd been involved with that interoperability could lead to innovation. And that, I was too late for that in the past in the industries that I'd worked in. And I thought, oh, I'll get the jump on this. And I wanted to enhance or at least explain to people why interoperability would be good and how to approach this so that we didn't end up with just a few technology silos. So that was much too early, I'm afraid.
Well, just jumping back very quickly to the area that you founded as well, and lucky enough to include me in that after a couple of years. Just real quick, what was your vision of that when you first started, and you and Paul and some of the other companies? Yeah. Just quickly on that, and then I'd love to talk a little bit more about your amazing work in the standards and interoperability space.
Yeah, it was I was trying to pitch standardization to these large enterprises, and they said something to me that was similar, that there's an echo that happened just in 2024. I'll get to that in a minute. They said, Christine, we appreciate your enthusiasm, but we have other problems. We have much bigger fish and much more complex issues to just get the technology to work. Okay. And this for them was that's the crux, was getting the content that they have into AR experiences. It was so early in their digital transformation that they didn't have the assets and there was when we launched was the year that Apple acquired Metaio, and that was also a wake-up call for everyone to understand that if you rely on one vendor and then something happens out of your control, you will be left kind of with some antiquated code. And that had already happened before the Metaio acquisition. So there was concern among the large enterprises about the future of these technologies and how to integrate them into their existing IT systems way before they had done the digital transformation. So I think that was probably one of the most important goals, and one of the things that I bonded with them was also the desire and the need for research, applied research
Mm,
that
mm.
could be conducted in a setting that resembled as close as possible to the real world. And this is probably, now we are on our 14th research project for the area. We've released many of those projects to the ecosystem. We're sort of like a think tank doing research on projects that can't be done by one company internally, and that are collaboratively funded and supported. And we decide on the topics as a group in these ballots in a very democratic way. So I think that was a good anchor point for us. Of course, we've developed many other committees, the statement of needs, the requirements database, the committees about, of course, safety and security, human factors. So these are first order problems. They're not back burner issues.
That's amazing, and thank you for the kind of work on the research. Like you said, what it's really important now, very practical, usable. There's always something in there that can be reused numerous times by the area members.
Right. I
Cool.
think the research projects, they've evolved, of course, and one of the things that we've really done well, I'm very pleased with, and thank you, Mark, for your support on all this, is creating a tool, trying to get each project to provide us, the area members, with a tool. It might be code, it might be a spreadsheet. Um, a decision support tool. These then can be adapted, as you said, or they can be compared with the tools that have been built internally. Now, these are not intended to be tools that compete with any of our members' products or services. They are financial tools like the return on investment calculator, or, as I said, decision support tools and things that allow people to examine their own procedures to improve them.
Yeah, wow, thank you. Um, so coming on to the last question, and I had another look. I quite often have a look at your LinkedIn profile, and it still amazes me the amount of, and I'm not even sure it's up to date, but the kind of standards and interoperability and kind of research organizations that you support. And I think one of the reasons for this award is a reflection of the amount of time and effort and drive you put into them. So, you're globally recognized for all of that outstanding work in standards and interoperability in the immersive technology space. But where do you think we are, and what needs to happen for that to become, to drive innovation, as you mentioned earlier?
Right. So thanks for bringing that up and turning the conversation to this topic. I think it's, to me, we are still in the dark ages. Um, there's still a strong attachment to technology silos. And I believe that that is hindering the adoption because the large enterprises they don't want to be exposed to just one vendor for all of their technology stack. So we're still not uh, running, we're still crawling in this domain. I think that what we are seeing now, and certainly I saw it at the most recent area member meeting, and I see it elsewhere when I work with large industry clients and partners, that in order for augmented reality to be integrated into the existing IT systems, there have to be APIs and there have to be components. There has to be a modular architecture.
Mm.
And while numerous modular architectures have been proposed, and I've been involved in well, now even three of those, there are not enough providers who embrace that philosophy. The I think the only way we're going to make long-term impact is when the customer segment, in other words, the oil and gas companies, manufacturing companies, aviation, automotive, those industries ask for or require certain standards to be implemented in their solutions. So that's really what I work on most actively now, is working on um, the messaging and how to convince the customer segment that they are doing themselves a disservice if they don't ask for interoperability, don't require it even. Um, I'm very passionate about the standards that I see developing in the Kronos Group, the Open Geospatial Consortium, the IEEE, ETSI, the European Telecommunications Space Standards Agency. There are many great teams working out there. I'm often just a bystander. I do lead 3 committees or working groups, and that is a way for me to contribute. I can't write these codes. I can't do the engineering, but one of the steps that we're all working, I think, towards more actively now in 2024 is demonstrating what interoperability can provide without tangible demonstrations of what standards adoption could bring. The large enterprises won't be convinced. So a lot of my effort right now is on applied demonstrations, videos that show demonstrations. I also want to say that augmented reality is never going to achieve all that we hope it to achieve if the human factors are not resolved. And that's not an area that I see standardization as being a big contributor in. I think that is a trial and error. It's a agreement among users about how they want to have this information provided. So that's a big factor. And having hardware that supports the types of interaction that the users need. Now, interoperability in the hardware domain, we have OpenXR. That's showing a lot of promise. We're not finished with that particular standard. That still needs a lot of work. I think it's important for people to understand that standardization isn't a one-time fix. It is something that is a continuous process. And as we do demonstrations, we learn where the standards are weak, where they need to be improved. So this is it's an iterative process, Mark. It's just never going to be
finished. It's a journey rather than a destination.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I think there's just a lot of potential, but a lack of attention. And then what I said about innovation is that when you have interoperability, then companies can specialize. They don't have to provide the entire technology stack, all the hardware, all of the software for delivering and for authoring experiences. They can begin to focus on their own areas of expertise. If it's rendering or scene recognition, object segmentation, all of these things have to be excellent, not just average.
Yeah. And I think companies then can innovate by bringing the best parts of all this stuff, but they have a infrastructure or a model to join them all. So, and that's obviously where interoperability makes his one of his the big plays is allowing companies to pick the best, bring it together in a controlled way.
Right.
Awesome. Christine, thank you ever so much. Congratulations on this. Thank you for all the work you do, not only for the area, but all of those other organizations. I know they're all appreciative, and it's one thing's for clear, with all your hard work in pushing, we will get there. We will get there.
I hope so, Mark. it's a journey, like you said, and I think that it's very exciting to see that AWE is recognizing other people much more senior than myself who have contributed to this before, and I guess we're all still involved. Many people are still involved.
Indeed they are. Okay, Christine, thank you very much and congratulations.
Thank you.